Good evening, everyone. I am Vishal Salsekar, and today we are going to discuss the News Today edition of 12th July. Right? So, News Today is a very comprehensive document and it gives you an idea about what actually has happened on that particular day. So, referring to this particular document along with this video is very, very important and it is going to immensely help you with respect to your preparation. So, let's start the discussion. The first main news for today's discussion is about the Maratha military landscape that has been incorporated now in the UNESCO's World Heritage Site list. The next important news is about the Gharial and the Sloth bear that is now part or that is right now going to be part of the species recovery program, right? Next important article is the first ever e-truck incentive scheme. Apart from that, what we are going to discuss about is the geothermal energy related policy that is being laid out by the Uttarakhand government. And last in the series of the important news articles, we are going to discuss about the UNEP's report, which is the Frontier Report 2025. Apart from these particular articles, we are also going to discuss about the quick updates. These are the 9 quick updates we are going to briefly discuss, right? So let's start the discussion. So the first article for the today's discussion is the Maratha military landscape that is now added to the UNESCO's World Heritage List. In the previous discussions also, we had already discussed about the importance of the UNESCO's World Heritage Site and the inclusion of certain Indian sites that are recently included in this particular World Heritage Site list. Why so? Because UPSC keeps on emphasizing on these things. For example, UPSC previously had asked about the Hoysala temple architecture. UPSC had also asked the question about like the criteria with respect to the World Heritage Site, right? So in that particular context, having an idea about this particular topic and in this particular topic, Maratha military landscape. So Marathas as the post-Mughal powers, Maratha became one of the prominent power that challenged the Mughal authority and eventually they were able to replace the Mughal authority before the basic power occupation by the British East India Company. So the Marathas were prominent power. And in order to consolidate that power, Marathas incorporated and established a lot of forts. And these forts, the 12 in this particular series of forts, are now being part of the UNESCO's World Heritage Site. So these cluster of 12 forts, the various forts, including the hill forts, including the forest forts, including certain coastal forts, and even certain island forts that are now part of this particular list. And hence, we have to discuss about this article. So basically, whenever there is any specific inclusion that has to be there regarding the UNESCO's World Heritage Site, one prominent criteria is that particular site must be an outstanding universal values. And then there are certain criteria that are mentioned that whether it is certain kind of, let's say, the human creative genius, or let's say that is certain kind of natural sites. So in this particular manner, what UNESCO's World Heritage Committee is doing, they are identifying these sites under 3 headers. First is the natural sites, then second is the cultural sites, and third is the a kind of like the mixed sites which is including or having the feature of both. So this Maratha military landscape has been incorporated in the UNESCO's World Heritage Site. Now, they are the strategic military heritage. What do we mean by the strategic military heritage? So basically in that context, the strategic military vision, innovation, what all advanced feature you can think as far as the military warfare is concerned, all these kind of forts were incorporating. For example, suppose karo if there is any kind of tentative invasion that can happen from certain invaders, right? So in that context, you should be prepared at the borders. So we have to address this particular aspect that Maratha's geography is roughly in the Deccan area and also having the western coast of the India, right? So in this particular region, Marathas were very strong. So now as this is a coastal area, so Maratha might be needing certain outposts. So there were certain island related forts were there. Then once suppose karo if there is any person or any specific invading power coming inside, so in that particular context, you will be needing certain kind of, let's say, at the coast ports. Apart from that, suppose they were master in the guerrilla tactics, so they had to ensure that there should be certain kind of hill forts that should be there. Apart from that, those hilly areas contain certain forts. So basically there are forests also. So in that region, forest region also, there should be forts. So basically in totality, you are able to see the forts at different places. That depicts the diversity, that depicts the vision, that depicts the kind of strategic attitudes of the Maratha along with the aptitude of Marathas as far as the warfare is concerned. Right. So they shows the strategic military vision, the innovation, the regional adaptation, and the architectural ingenuity. Right. So they were innovative, they were creative, they were also original as far as their own designs are concerned. Apart from that, with respect to the geographical spread, so the 12 forts that were incorporated in the UNESCO's World Heritage List, 11 are from Maharashtra and one Jinji fort that is in the Tamil Nadu, right? So they are from Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu. So UPSC can confuse you that all the 12 forts were from the Maharashtra, then the answer will be wrong. Apart from that, these are the diverse and the strategic locations. So this shows that Maratha's stronghold was in different region. That was there even at the plateaus of the Deccan region. That was even at the coastal region. That was even at the island region. So you can see the hill forts at the Salhar, then Shivneri, Lohgad, Raigad, Rajgad, and Jinji, which is in Tamil Nadu. Apart from that, all other are in Maharashtra. Then the hill forest forts, basically, if you see the kind of geography, there are forests also, there are certain kind of other geographies that are available, right? Though might not be that dense, but yes, in the Western Ghat region, they are very dense, and they are right now very much popular for certain kind of trekking related activities. You might have seen a lot of videos with respect to the Maratha forts, right? So basically, in that case, the hill forest that is there in the Pratapgarh region, apart from that, hill plateau forts in the Panhala region, right? So at the upper altitude or at comparatively higher altitude where you can even place your entire city and the administration from that particular region. Apart from that, the coastal fort at the Vijayadurga region. So coastal fort basically very near to the coastal region, so that if there is any kind of incoming power which might be having the intention to invade your territory, in that case, these coastal forts will be utilized. Apart from that, there are certain island forts that were also there. So what are the island forts? Basically, in that context, you can see that they are completely surrounded by the sea. So in that case, the Khanderi fort is there, then the Suvarnadurg is there, and the Sindhudurg is there, right? So diversity of forts explains that what kind of mindset they were having. And why this diversity is needed? Because the kind of differential tactics as far as the warfare is concerned, including the guerrilla warfare tactics. Now, having discussed about this, another important thing which UPSC is going to focus upon a lot is the kind of World Heritage Site related selection. In the previous discussion also, we had discussed about what are the basic criteria with respect to the selection of the World Heritage Site. So in the case of the World Heritage Site, that should be having the outstanding universal value and should be meeting at least one of the 10 criteria that are mentioned. Now you can see the document of the World Heritage Site. I don't think so you need to go into those details, but there are 10 different criteria that are mentioned. For example, certain kind of, let's say, human genius, or let's say certain kind of natural aspects that were there, predominantly certain kind of creative aspects that are there, right? So these particular things are mentioned as a part of criteria that can be checked when we are applying for the UNESCO's World Heritage Site. Now, in that case, the process includes the nomination process. So the nomination process goes like this. First, the country which is member of the World Heritage Convention. You have to remember this thing, that if the country is member to the World Heritage Convention, that only can get its site designated to this list. Okay? So first, the country should be the member of the World Heritage Convention. After this, the country can designate its site as a site for the tentative inclusion. So tentative list mein these particular countries are going to put their sites, right? Once the country is putting their site in the tentative list, minimum 1 year is the criteria. There, these particular sites will be there. And once they will complete 1 year, then after only the formal nomination can be filed by that country. So in that case, the tentative list and nomination filing will be done by the respective country which is the member of World Heritage Convention. Once the nomination is filed, now there are certain advisory bodies which will be checking. Let's say if the site is the cultural site, so in that particular context, the ICOMOS, which is the International Council on the Monuments and Sites, along with that there is ICCROM, which is this particular International Center for the Study of the Preservation and Restoration of Cultural Property. So these are the bodies which are going to look after the criteria, whether that site is fulfilling the criteria, and if it is a natural site, site, then the IUCN is there. So the advisories body will check. So in that case also, advisory body had checked the kind of criteria fulfillment, and then only there will be consideration by the World Heritage Committee. Now, right now, India is part of the World Heritage Committee from the time period of 2021 to 2025. Right. So once they are giving the approval, then only the site will be designated as the World Heritage Site. Right. So the final decision will be done by the World Heritage Committee. Right now, India is a member of World Heritage Committee from the for the cycle of 2021 to 2025. Right. Apart from that, there are certain other important facts with respect to World Heritage Site. One thing I have already conveyed to you, 3 categories are there: the kind of cultural aspect, then the natural ones, and also the mixed site. So 3 categories. Now, if somebody asks you whether India has only the cultural one or the natural one, the answer will be all 3. India has the cultural sites also, natural sites also, and also the mixed site are available in India. Now, this was the 44th site. That means there are now 44 designated World Heritage Sites that are there in India. Now, India, as far as the globe is concerned, 6th largest country, which is having largest number of the World Heritage Site. And in the Asia Pacific region, it is the 2nd one. Apart from that, in the case of India, it is the Archaeological Survey of India, which is the nodal agency. Now, you have to see the previous year's question with respect to this. UPSC in the recent past has asked the question about this. So application is very, very important. So refer to the previous year question. You will get a clarity about like why reading to this is important, right? The next important article that we had to discuss about is the Gharial and the Sloth bear that has been recommended for the inclusion under the Species Recovery Program, under the centrally sponsored scheme of the Integrated Development of the Wildlife Habitat. Right. So this is a centrally sponsored scheme, and under this particular scheme, the sites, the basically species are designated for the Species Recovery Program. We are going to discuss about this. Now you can see the images of both the sloth bear and the gharial. Right. Now, what are the important aspects that we have to discuss about this particular body? Now see, there is a Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, which is basically helping the species and also the ecosystem related aspects like the environmental protection related things, and apart from that, the species related aspects. So in general, for the conservation of that, this Wildlife Protection Act is supporting. Now in that particular Wildlife Protection Act, there is a body which is the National Board for Wildlife, which is being chaired by the Prime Minister. Under that particular body, there is a standing committee of the National Board for Wildlife. Now the confusion arises whether the PM is the chairperson of this body or this body. Many a time you might commit the mistake. So whenever in UPSC the question comes, the National Board for Wildlife is being chaired by the Prime Minister of India. But if the question asks about the standing committee of the National Board for Wildlife, it is being chaired by the Union Minister for the Environmental, Forest and the Climate Change. So Environment, Forest and Climate Change Union Minister is basically chairperson of the standing committee, and National Board for Wildlife is being chaired by the Prime Minister of India. They are being formed under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Now in this particular Wildlife Protection Act, different species are categorized under the Schedule 1, Schedule 2 like this. So different categories of protection are being provided to different species, right? What is the objective of this particular committee? So the objective is that this committee is recommending the conservation related aspects and also for the protection of the wildlife and the forests. Also the biodiversity is inherent part to it. So they are recommending that these particular species should be the part of the recovery program. Now for that particular aspect, what should be the criteria? There might be certain kind of endangerment to that particular species. Let's say there may be lesser number or the number is declining suddenly or abruptly, right? There may be certain kind of threatenment due to the human wildlife conflict, or let's say from the developmental project. So in any specific case, they may highlight that these species need to be incorporated in the species recovery program, right? So now, which particular scheme we were talking about? This was the centrally sponsored scheme of the integrated development of the wildlife habitat. So centrally sponsored scheme, I hope that in the economy you might have already read about this, that centrally sponsored schemes are basically those schemes which are on the subjects either on the state list or let's say in the concurrent list also, means they are mainly concerned with the state government and there will be fund sharing by the union government also. So generally, as far as we are knowing about this particular scheme, generally the 60-40 criteria is there. So for the normal states, it is 60% by the central government and the 40% by the state government. For the special category states, there may be some different criteria, let's say 90-10. But right now, there is no such fixed thing. It may be increased or decreased depending upon the need. So what this particular integrated development of wildlife habitat is doing, this particular scheme is providing the financial and the technical assistance to the state and the UT governments. On what particular aspect? On the aspects of the support and development of the wildlife and also, let's say, the biodiversity related things. So the components include the support to the protected areas. Now in this case, the protected areas include, let's say, the national park, let's say the wildlife sanctuaries, community reserves and also the conservation reserve. So all these areas they are providing the support to the conservation of these particular areas. Apart from that, protection to the wildlife, so ऐसा तो नहीं है कि only the wildlife is residing in those areas. You might have seen the wildlife even other than the national park, wildlife sanctuary or the conservation or the community reserve, right? So in that case also, it is going to provide the protection to the wildlife even outside those protected areas. Lastly, in this case, the recovery program. So the program that we are talking about, the species recovery program. Suppose karo, in any specific case, the species count is getting declined over a small amount of time, right? So in that case, if there is a lot endangerment to that particular species, there can be recovery programs that can also be launched for those species. Right now, there are 22 programs that were launched for different kind of species, right? Now, see, in that case, the species are very, very important. We have discussed about the scheme and all, but these species are, I would say, more important. So there are two species that are mentioned for the recovery program. First is Gharial. Now, the Gharial is the kind of species that is found in the freshwater resources. So generally, it will be found in the river-related ecosystem. Now, in the case of India, which particular river it is found? So Chambal River, Girva River, which is in the Uttar Pradesh, right? So Chambal is situated in the tri-junction of Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Even Girva River is there mainly in the northern part of the Uttar Pradesh region. So here in India and also Rapti Narayani River in the Nepal, this Gharial is found. Now the Gharial name comes from the kind of snout ke jo end pe, there is a kind of structure that is available on its snout that appears like ghada. So the name comes as Gharial. So its beak or the snout is very, very thin. And generally, it is found in the rivers only. Matlab, among the all crocodile kind of species, this is the most aquatic one. Means it likes to live in those swampy or let's say in the river-like areas, right? So if we talk about certain UPSC specific things, so prelims there are very high chances that the question can be asked regarding its IUCN status. So in the IUCN category, it is defined under the critically endangered species. If we talk about the Wildlife Protection Act, it is basically part of the Schedule 1 species. If we talk about sites, it is found in the Appendix 1 of sites, right? Next, we have to talk about the sloth bear also. So basically, sloth bear is found in the India, Sri Lanka and Nepal. So all these three regions, this sloth bear is found. Now, when we talk about the physiographic or the geographic area in India, so it is found in the peninsular India also, Western Ghats, Deccan Plateau, Gangetic Plain and also in the northeastern region. So as you can see in this particular image, it is having fur. So a kind of like furry animal is it. It is also nocturnal. It is basically eating certain kind of, let's say, small insects might be there, mites may be there, ticks may be there. So these are the food of these sloth bear. Now, UPSC is generally concerned about, again, the similar thing, what is the IUCN category. So for this, the IUCN is vulnerable. So it is designated as the vulnerable species. But apart from that, all the other things are same as the Gharial, which is, let's say, the sites it is designated in the Appendix 1 and the Wildlife Protection Act it is in the Schedule 1, right? So that means a lot of recognition and also a lot of protection is being provided to both the species. So we had discussed about the Gharial and the sloth bear. And from the exam perspective, these are very, very important. Next article that we have to discuss about is the first ever e-truck incentive scheme that is launched in India. So e-truck here is the electric truck. Now you know that government is focusing a lot on the electric vehicles, right? You might have seen a lot of promotion. There was also a previous scheme which was faster adoption and manufacturing of the electric and the hybrid vehicle. And now there is the PM Drive scheme, which is also focusing upon that. And also it has broadened its horizon. It had included a lot of other things, including the logistics and all. So basically, there are two front benefits of these EVs. First, it is going to, in the longer term, reduce the kind of cost. How? Because the oil and the fuels that on which the vehicles are running, basically that is comparatively costly. And when it comes to the EVs, it comparatively appears cheaper in the longer run. I'm not saying that they are right now at upfront, they are cheaper. And that's why government is incentivizing. But there is another benefit, and which we can say the most important benefit. They are the environment friendly. Because if the electricity on which they are thriving, if the electricity is generated from certain kind of sustainable resources, in that case, they are too much environment friendly. They will reduce the greenhouse gas emission compared to the diesel and the petrol vehicle. Now, a very important fact with respect to, let's say, these trucks. So you might have seen a lot of trucks, right? For the transportation of the heavy goods, or let's say the vegetables and a lot of things, day-to-day items. So they constituting only 3% of the total vehicles that are running that you are able to see. But if we talk about the greenhouse gas emission, they are more than 40% contributor of the greenhouse gas emission. So that these diesel vehicles are contributing a lot as far as the greenhouse gas emission is concerned. And that's why for the heavier vehicles, these kind of schemes are very, very important, right? So let's discuss about this particular scheme. So in the e-truck incentive scheme, which is under Pradhan Mantri e-Drive initiative, what are the basic features and objective? So the objective is, as I've already suggested you, to promote the indigenous manufacturing. Now see, what you are doing, you are providing an incentive. Now the manufacturers are going to get the incentive to produce the vehicle or the e-truck. So in that case, don't you think so the cost is going to get reduced? If the cost of manufacturing is going to get reduced, they will be apparently cheaper, and that will be available cheaper, and then the industries are more and more going to adopt them if they are appearing cheaper, right? So through incentivization, the industries are promoting it more, there will be more indigenization, and in the long term, there will be a lot reduction of the greenhouse gases. And right now we are going through the age of climate change. So there can be reduction of these kind of negative impacts that we are able to see because of the climate change and apparently the global warming also. So it will promote the indigenous manufacturing. It is going to reduce the logistical cost also, because in the longer term, if you see for per rupee some kilometers, so in that case for the EVs it is comparatively more. Like in the lesser number of rupee, the vehicle can move more as compared to the petrol and the diesel related vehicle. And also it is going to reduce the carbon footprint. Now, when we talk about the feature, how the incentive is going to be provided for this e-truck related scheme. So the incentive is going to be provided with respect to the gross vehicle weight. Now, there are two categories that are being defined in this case. There is N2, where the gross weight is 3.5 ton to 12 ton. This we are talking about the truck related weight, right? So from 3.5 ton to 12 ton, if the manufactured weight is under this category, it will be N2 category, and N3, 12 ton to 55 ton. Now there has been a maximum capping for the incentive to 9.6 lakh per vehicle. So basically on that case, N2 and N3 basis pay, there will be differential incentive will be provided, but this incentive is maximum capped at 9.6 lakh per vehicle. Okay? So just have an idea about this. Now, when we talk about this Pradhan Mantri drive revolution in the innovative vehicle enhancement, which is PME drive. So the scheme related things I have already discussed about previously also, that in any specific scheme, the first and most important thing is the ministry. So which ministry it is part of? It is part of the Ministry of Heavy Industries, right? Then it is focusing upon, again, as it is focusing upon the EVs. So it is focusing upon the E2-wheelers, E3-wheelers, then E-ambulances, E-trucks, E-buses, then apart from the vehicles, you will need the charging infrastructure. You will need the entire ecosystem which is EV friendly, right? So there will be e-buses, e-charging infrastructure, EV testing related things that are also there. And right now you are able to see a lot of logistical aspects or logistical front pe bhi government is functioning a lot. So basically, jab tak you will not create the entire ecosystem, till that point of time, you will not be in a position to roll out the complete EV wala models, right? The objective of this is basically to go for the EV ecosystem development. What do we mean by the EV ecosystem development? It should not be only there should be only EV vehicles, but there should be charging station at the adequate distance. Then also the efficiency enhancement of those particular vehicles. Adequate testing should be there. The load bearing capacities, along with that, accordingly the roads should be constructed. So there is a long-term vision with respect to this. Now this is expanding the previously running FAME scheme, which is the faster adoption and manufacturing of the electric and hybrid vehicle. So that was there in 2 phases. So second phase ke beyond jaakar, this scheme is also incorporating e-trucks, which was not part of the FAME, e-ambulances, public charging infrastructure development. That means the entire holistic ecosystem of EV related developments. Then along with that, in the Pradhan Mantri e-drive scheme, there is the scrapping link incentive that is also being provided. That means if the old vehicles are getting scrapped, so there also certain kind of incentives are being provided. And along with that, the testing and the accreditation agencies that are also being provided with certain incentives, right? So this is about the PM e-drive scheme. Next article that we can discuss about is the Uttarakhand cabinet approved the Uttarakhand Geothermal Energy policy, right? So different states, again, in the last article we had discussed about EV. Now this article is also talking about the alternative resources of energy, or let's say the renewable energy. So the government is again and again focusing a lot on the EVs and also this green and the renewable energy. Why? Because the carbon footprint that we have to reduce as a part of our global commitment to reduce the greenhouse gas emission, right? India is also one of the largest emitter of the greenhouse gases, but considering that the kind of historical injustices we had seen, still there are chances that India can reduce, because there are diversity of the sustainable energy resources that India can use, and India can boost up the research and development related things on this. So in this series, different states as per their capacity are functioning upon different things of the energy production. So let's talk about the geothermal energy. Now what is basically geothermal energy? So when we talk about geothermal energy, it comes from 2 words, geo and thermal. So in Hindi we say bhutapiya urja, right? So the kind of energy that is already there in the earth. Now you might say how the energy is basically residing in the earth. So when the earth was getting formed, at that point of time, there was certain kind of primordial heat that was trapped within earth only. Apart from that, and that acts as one such source of the geothermal energy. Apart from that particular primordial heat, there can be some kind of, let's say, the activities with respect to the radioactive related element that gets decayed over a period of time. So there will be a continuous and the spontaneous generation of energy from those resources also. And that is energizing the earth in general, and eventually that particular energy we are able to see in the form of the thermal energy. We know that when we go deep down inside the earth, the temperature starts increasing, right? So there will be utilization of those things in order to generate the energy, and that energy in simple term is known as the geothermal energy, right? So now to trap that energy is a task. So there are conventionally, the geothermal energy was utilized on the place where there is, let's say, certain kind of geothermal vent that are available. Now there may be a chance that, let's say, water is passing through that region where the geothermal energy is trapped, and if water or let's say any other fluid is coming out from that region, if we are trapping the energy from that particular water, in that case it will be the conventional geothermal technologies. Okay? Now see, the comparatively scaling of this thing is comparatively difficult. How? Because generally hota kya hai ki they might not be that much deep down, right? And trapping energy from that kind of fluid which is flowing might be sometimes appearing difficult. So there are certain modern technology or the next generational technologies that are also incorporated, right? So in this technology, what we are doing, either we are artificially fracturing certain layers of the earth, we are going deep down, and what we are doing, we are putting some pipe. Let's say I am giving you a layman example for this. We are putting some pipe, then we are flowing certain kind of liquids from there, and that particular liquid, when that is getting heated because of the energy which is residing, so through that we are going to get the geothermal energy. That means now we can go deep down and we can artificially generate the geothermal energy. So enhanced geothermal systems mein what we are doing, we are fracturing certain layers of earth, and through that we are tapping these energy resources. Then there is closed loop geothermal system also. In the closed loop, as the name suggests, it's like ki you are putting water, then the energy is getting generated, the energy is being trapped by the water, then you are utilizing that particular heated water and the steam for generation of electricity, then it is again passing through, it is cooling down, and then again it can be utilized. So it's a kind of like closed loop system jahan par the entry will be done once and then it will be rotating within that particular system. So the energy will be trapped, you will be utilizing it for the electricity generation, then it will be cooled down, and then again it will be injected through the inlet. So like this you can utilize in the form of the closed loop geothermal system. See, the concept is going to remain same, but the kind of scaling that you can do, that can be increased through these kind of modern technology, because through this we can identify the potential hotspot, we can dig deep into that, and then we can generate the energy which is the geothermal energy, right? Now see, with respect to the potential for any specific energy related generation, first we should be having an awareness regarding what is the potential. So with respect to the geothermal energy, the potential is roughly 10,600 megawatt, which is roughly like 10 gigawatt ke around. The potential is there in India. When we talk about the potential, obviously there will be certain region jahan par there might be certain kind of observation regarding that we can find the geothermal energy trapped in the layers of earth. So Puga Valley, then Chumtang is there, that is in Ladakh, then Marikaran Sahib is there in the Himachal Pradesh. So there are many such regions, even in the eastern part of country, even in the central part of country, even in the western part of country. So we are going to discuss about that also. Now what are the benefits? The first important benefit is it's not like ki only when the sun will be there, then only the energy can be generated. Only when the wind is flowing, in that case we are going to generate the energy. So it will be a 24/7 electricity generation, because it's not like very limited resources are there within earth. The span of earth is too large, and there we can generate the continuous energy. That's why 24/7 generation. Next is about high utilization rate. So you are precisely tapping that resource jahan par wo energy trapped hai. And that energy mein you are focusing upon that limited area only. So the utilization rate means the area you are exploring and the amount of energy you are getting. So that hit ratio is roughly around 75%. This was observed in the 2023. Lastly, in this respect, there may be other benefits also, but with respect to this is low emissions. Now the carbon footprint, if we talk about, this is a kind of renewable energy resource. That's why the carbon footprint and the emission is very, very low. But if this is the case, then obviously there must have been, like by this time, we could have totally utilized our potential. So why we are not able to utilize this comprehensive potential of the geothermal energy? So there must be certain kind of challenges that are there with respect to this, right? What are the challenges? First is about the relatively high technology cost. Now, to set up this particular kind of plant, trapping the entire energy that is coming, and that to be converted into electricity, then only it will be there in the utilizable form, right? That is costly. And the kind of technology that is needed, because you have to fracture certain layers of earth. In that case, you have to trap all these kind of things. There may be a lot of negative consequences also, right? So those issues are there. Limited research and development. Now, overall research and development, if you see the data, that as per the previous economic survey related highlights that 0.7% of the GDP that we are spending on the research and development. So you can think that on these kind of technology also comparative expenditure is lesser. So that limited R&D is there. Apart from that, obviously, when you are going to fracture the layers of earth, you might not be knowing that what can be the negative consequences. There may be certain kind of human induced earthquake that may be observed, right? You are going to change or alter the entire ecosystem of that region. That also can be the issue issue. Apart from that, the licensing related things, because see, suppose karo, if you are going to utilize that particular land, maybe there are different agencies that are going to now part of this kind of projects, and in that case the fast tracking of the process may be a difficult aspect, and that can also be leading to certain kind of environmental damage. Now, what India has done till this point of time. So, Geothermal Atlas of India, basically it is highlighting that what are the potential areas where the reserves can be identified. So, that was done in 2022 to identify that which all areas are there where we can have the potential of the geothermal energy. Then the constitution of a task force. So, the task force has been constituted under the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. So, this particular task force is also focused upon to identify what can be the sustainable measure through which we can get the resources, or in this case the energy and generation of electricity, right? So sustainability is very important thing. Then the renewable energy research and the technology development program, that is also they are functioning upon the similar aspect. Then there are certain international cooperation also that we are focusing upon. So in this case, the Iceland, Saudi Arabia, RETAP, which is the Renewable Energy Technology Action Platform with US, through which we are collaborating. Now, why we are collaborating internationally? Because it's not like only in India we do have the resources of the geothermal energy. Across the world, different countries have different potential. So the countries are also functioning upon this geothermal energy, and this inter-country cooperation and collaboration can help plugging these challenges. So through the kind of international cooperation and other aspect that government is doing, we can overcome these particular challenges, and we can have the sustainable utilization of the geothermal energy. Clear? Now, the geothermal hotspots, you can see that in the map there are certain geothermal hotspots that are mentioned. For example, in the Ladakh region there is Puga Valley. Then the Manigaran Sahib is there, that is in the Himachal Pradesh. Then Sohana is there, which is basically a kind of belt in the near Delhi region, also including the region of Haryana and Rajasthan area. Then there is a central belt also. Then there is eastern belt, jahan par Son and other rivers related area are there. And then there are certain hotspots that are being identified. Then in the western region also, let's say Dholera is there, then Ganeshpuri is there, right? So these are the prominent regions where the potential of geothermal energy is there. Now see, assume a mains question. The mains question are going to focus more upon the current issues that the India is facing. Let's say the climate change, because in the disaster management also these kind of question can be there. And with respect to this renewable energy resources, environment and ecology, there can be a probable question. You can make a map, and not necessarily that all the location need to be shown. 1-2 location north, 1-2 location in the east. So 5, 6, 7 locations on the map along with the map drawing is going to do a lot of value addition in your answer. So if you are going to do these kind of value addition, then definitely you are going to get 1 or 2 mark extra as compared to the one who are not utilizing the aspect of the presentation techniques, right? So have certain location. Now this is not only for geothermal, it is also for the wind power, it is also for the solar power, it is also for other kind of ocean thermal energy. So all different kind of energy and other resources ke liye you can make these kind of maps. Clear hai? Okay. Last in the main news that we have to discuss about is the UNEP report, which is the Frontier 2025, the Weight of Time report, right? So basically, United Nations Environment Program is a kind of institution that was formed in 1972 after the Stockholm Conference of the United Nations Conference on the Human and Environment. 1972, that conference was there. And after that, you might have seen that India may be a lot focus on the conservation of the environment. So that particular focus was mainly started from the 1972 onwards, when the world has seen that yes, it is very important to conserve the environment, right? So that UNEP was also formed in that particular time period. Now this reports when we have previously also discussed about that whenever there is a report, the name of the report and the agency that is releasing, because UPSC is asking straightforward question, that ease of doing business released by which? Let's say the World Competitiveness Index released by this, or the Global Competitiveness Index, Global Gender Gap Report, Hunger Report, these kind of things UPSC is asking as it is. So have an idea about like which particular agency is releasing this report. Now this report, if I talk to you in brief about this report is highlighting that there are certain areas where we have to focus upon in order to prevent that becoming a kind of next major challenge like a pandemic kind of situation. Let's say right now we are knowing that the climate change is a major issue. Now, there might be certain kind of things that we can focus upon in order to reduce the impact of climate change, or to some extent we can reverse that also. But if we are right now not going to focus upon that, tomorrow it will be going to cost us a lot. And that's why we are focusing more on the sustainable development goal. We are going to focus more on the reduction of the carbon emission. All these kind of things are there. So this report also highlights that there are certain kind of spotlights that are emerging in the environmental issues. Before they become the major catastrophe, we have to address them. So this report is highlighting these kind of issues. Now, first in this is the reactivation of the microbes in the warming cryosphere. Now, cryosphere is basically that particular region of the world where almost permanently you are able to see the frozen time period, or let's say the snow that is completely freezing that particular region. Now, in that case, what is happening? Now, if there is global warming and climate change, there is going to be reduction of the snow from that region, or the permafrost in that particular region that is going to thaw, and that will be releasing, let's say, a lot of microbes which were previously dormant in those particular regions. Now, those microbes are known as the psychrophiles or the cryophiles, which are basically those which are remaining in the dormant state. They are not dead. They are in the dormant state. If tomorrow they will be again active because of certain kind of these things, then they might be dangerous. Let's say certain viruses, let's say certain kind of bacteria, or let's say pathogens, they will become reactivated if these kind of issues are not resolved on a priority level. Next, about the river barriers. So what we are doing right now with the rivers, we are doing certain kind of construction. We are basically doing construction in the river related areas, jo ki floodplains hai river ke. We are doing the construction of the dam. Now, all these kind of things are hindering the natural flow of river. Now, there is a biodiversity that is attached to the river. There are certain kind of species that are dependent on the river. Then there are people who are residing in those regions. Now, when you are doing the construction, let's say Sardar Sarovar Dam or any other dam, when you are doing the construction of the large dams, that is going to hinder certain amount of biodiversity. Now, there are n number of dams are being created across the globe. What they are doing? They are hindering the biodiversity. Now, you might have also heard of the dam-induced earthquakes. They are hindering the biodiversity flow, natural flow. All these kind of things are going to change the ecosystem. And the ecosystem change, if done in that extent, it might be irreversible, and that is going to cause a lot of damage. Next is about the demographic challenge. So you are able to see the kind of urbanization is going on. Sometimes we are doing the mindless urbanization where no urban amenities are being focused. There are development of slums. So as per many reports, in the major urban cities, more than 50% of population is residing in the urban slum areas, right? So the kind of basic amenities, let's say the health related thing, education, the sanitation, all of these are not available in those regions. So the demographic challenges are causing certain kind of other thing. Let's say the concretization causing the heat waves or the impact like urban heat island. Then there is air pollution. You might be seeing the condition of the prominent Indian cities where the pollution is the major issue, right? The flood related things. Now, in the last few days, you might have seen a lot of urban floods or the flash floods in different parts of the world, whether it is in Odisha, whether it is in the Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand region. Across India, it is going on, right? Last in this particular thing is the remobilization of the legacy pollutants by the flood events. Now, suppose there is a flood in any specific region. Now, whenever flood water is flowing, now it will be taking that mud and a lot of rock related things along with it. Now, what it is doing, it is exposing a lot of heavy metals or let's say the organic minerals which were previously stored in the earth itself. Now, because of the flood or let's say flash floods, this is exposed to people. Now, through the drinking water, through certain kind of food consumption, these heavy metals, these kind of toxicants, these kind of organic minerals, now we are consuming. Now, these things, when they are not biodegradable, they are getting accumulated in the body. So in the form of bioaccumulation, they are getting accumulated over a period of time, causing the issue of bioaccumulation. Means the toxic material increases in the individual's body, and when it is raising on the different trophic levels, in that case from 1 to upper trophic level to next trophic level, that kind of thing is magnified. So that is known as the biomagnification. So these kind of issues are getting increased over a period of time. So this report by UNEP is highlighting that these are certain kind of catastrophic issues that we have to take into consideration and we have to work upon in order to reduce these events to become the next catastrophe. Clear hai? Next we have to discuss is about the quick updates, right? So in this series, the first quick update is the WHO pandemic agreement. So in the 2020 to 2022, we had seen the pandemic related issues. Now at that point of time, we had seen how the world has responded. What was the coordination? What was the availability of the framework? How different countries supported? How the least developed countries and the developing countries got support from the developed countries which had the resources. So in order to formalize these things and in order to have certain kind of certainty in that particular context, the WHO member states held their first meeting of the Intergovernmental Working Group on the WHO Pandemic Agreement. Now, this particular working group was established recently in order to ensure the coordination. In future, whenever there will be any kind of pandemic-related situation, how the world countries are going to cooperate. So this has decided the principles, approaches, and tool for the better international coordination. Right. So let's say the drugs to be distributed. Let's say in the case of COVID, there was need for PPE kit. There was need for certain kind of, let's say, the testing kits, right? So all these things were needed, and later on the vaccines and other kind of support, right? So those particular things, how they are going to be provided to different countries, and specifically to the least developed countries and the developing countries, that aspects are being discussed in this. So main principle includes the international humanitarian law, equity, solidarity, respect for the dignity, human rights, and the fundamental freedom. Matlab, it should not be the case that only the developed countries are getting support and developing countries and the least developed countries are getting ignored, right? So these particular aspects are ensuring that there should be a comprehensive support for the developing and the least developed countries also. Even the WHO में जो World Health Assembly है, they have decided कि roughly 20% of the different vaccine producers will be keeping as a stock, that if there is any kind of pandemic, what they are doing, they are going to give that 20% stock to the WHO. So like this, there are certain kind of initiatives going on as part of this. Next is the Trade and the Economic Partnership Agreement. So there was the Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement that was signed between India and the EFTA countries, which is the European Free Trade Association countries. Now the news is that the Switzerland has completed the ratification process for the trade agreement signed between India and the 4 European nation EFTA. Now you might be thinking there is European Union, right? Then what is EFTA? So these are the 4 countries ka group which are not formally part of the all agreements of the European Union. So they have formed a free trade agreement among themselves, which includes the country like Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and the Iceland. Now, how they are cooperating then with EU? Are they cooperating or not? So they are cooperating with EU. For example, Switzerland had different kind of trade pacts with EU, and this Liechtenstein, Norway, and Iceland have a basic cooperation through the European Economic Area. So in some way or other, they are related to EU, but they are not formally part of the EU as an entire economic union, right? So they have formed a kind of, or they have signed a deal with the India with the Trade and the Economic Partnership Agreement. It is a kind of free trade agreement, right? Now, there are certain binding commitments. Whenever you are signing the free trade agreement, you are going to reduce the tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers, right? You are going to promote investment. You are going to do a lot of association with respect to different areas. Let's say the trade with respect to goods and services. So there is a commitment of 100 billion investment and the 1 million direct jobs in the next 15 years. So with respect to this deal, these are the outcomes that are expected over a period of time of 15 years. And this is said that this can become the way forward for the India and the European Free Trade Agreement. There is another free trade agreement that have been signed with the European country, which is like India and the UK. So these 2 free trade agreement can pave the way for the India and EU free trade agreement in future. Right now that has not signed. Next is about the Astra missile. So DRDO and Indian Air Force have conducted the flight test of the Earth Astra missile now with the indigenous radio frequency seeker from Su-30 MKI platform. Now see, what is the radio frequency seeker? Now whenever there are certain kind of, let's say, the beyond visual range missiles are being fired, on those missiles also there are the radio frequency seekers or a kind of, let's say, radar receivers and emitters that are being put in order to ensure that they should navigate whenever the target is moving, target is maneuvering. So these missiles also should be able to do the course correction. For example, a fighter aircraft is moving and it is doing certain kind of maneuvers. So through the radar seekers that are available, they are able to catch that what is the distance, what will be the speed that is needed, and how we have to fire. So this will be done by the Astra missile itself through the indigenous radio frequency seeker that was fired from the Sukhoi MKI-30 platform, right? So it is a BVR AAM, which is the beyond visual range air-to-air missile. That means it can be fired from the air, let's say from the aircraft, and can hit the aircraft or any kind of moving target, right? It can engage and destroy highly maneuveric supersonic aircraft. So this is its capability, that it can also maneuver along with the kind of target it is going to hit. It is developed by DRDO. Now this type testing was done by the DRDO and IAF because the kind of platform is being done by the IAF, right? The range is 100 kilometer plus and equipped with the state-of-art guidance and the navigation, which is basically the radio frequency seeker and the indigenous one that is applied, right? So this is about the Astra missile. Next is about transfet. So it is the experts that have warned the United Nations कि if we are going to put a blanket ban on the transfets, it is going to harmful for mainly the developing countries and the least developed countries. Now when we have to talk about the transfets, so broader term is the unsaturated fatty acids. So these are also industrially produced, let's say from the hydrogenated oil, or they can be animal produced also from, let's say, their meat, or maybe from certain kind of dairy product that we are getting from them, or processing of those particular dairy product, right? So the experts are saying if you are going to ban this trans fat completely, we are getting the trans fats from the animals also, and many communities are dependent upon those particular fatty acids. And if we are doing the complete ban on that, there may be the nutrition related issues in those specific areas. Now, when the trans fats were there in news, so there are certain negative aspects also associated with them. So there are also related to the raising the level of bad cholesterol in the body. Now the bad cholesterol is getting attached to the arteries. They will be shrinking the arteries and they will be reducing the flow of blood through that, and in turn the oxygen. And if it will be reduced so much in that particular case, it can also lead to the cardiac arrest. Then other than that, overweight, then inflammation, obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, all these kind of things are also a product of the trans fat. And that's why there are ban also that are going to imposed on these things. But now the experts are saying the blanket ban should not be there. At least animal related trans fat should be allowed. Now, next is about AI Alliance Network. So it is a kind of like informal and voluntary organization where different think tanks and the non-governmental organization related to AI from different countries are collaborating. They are exchanging their views. They are suggesting regarding the sustainable development of the AI framework, how that can be utilized for the future of the humanity, how that can be made inclusive and all. So the context is that the Digital India Foundation, which is the representative of India in this particular alliance network, that have basically put the opposition कि भाई Pakistan should not be the part of this, because these kind of technological support can be utilized in the kind of development of the military related weapons based upon the AI. So it is an informal and voluntary network. Aim is to accelerate sustainable development, long-term prosperity, social and economic development. Members 17, basically the NGOs and the other organizations, right, administered by the AI Alliance Russia. Next is about the Interstate River Water Disputes Act 1956. So based upon the constitutional article 262, there is mentioned that the parliament can frame the law in order to, or the interstate river dispute related tribunal in order to solve the interstate river water dispute. So there were multiple tribunals that were previously also formed with respect to, let's say, Krishna River, Kaveri River, right? So there was also a tribunal that was formed for the Ravi and the Byas River, and the state parties are Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan, right? So basically that have now been extended to few more for some more time with respect to the adjudication of the interstate water dispute related things. 1986. Now, this tribunal was formed in 1986. Now, the prominent aspect with respect to this constitutional article, that this bars that Supreme Court or any other court cannot interfere in the jurisdiction, or which is like the jurisdiction of the tribunal. तो वहां पर Supreme Court cannot basically do or adjudicate on that matter. But then also there are certain instances through the special leave petition that we have seen where the Supreme Court had gone for adjudication, right? Now, next is about the RODIS, which is the Rhino DNA Index System India program. So, Assam Forest Department has started the DNA profiling of the rhino horns and add to the RODIS India DNA data library. So, what they are doing basically, they are finding the DNA samples from the rhino horns, and that is being utilized for this particular data library, right? So, it was launched in 2016 by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, the Wildlife Institute of India, Forest Department of Assam, West Bengal, UP, and WWF, which are basically member of this. Now, these are the range state where generally the rhinos or the major population of rhinos are being found. So what they are doing the genetic sequencing, means the genetic identification of the rhino that is created to create the signature unique to individual rhino, because the DNA will be unique. So they are going to create a repository and through basically their horns. Now, next is about the fentanyl. Fentanyl, right? So fentanyl crisis basically क्या हुआ है in simple term? US president has imposed certain tariff. In this case, 35% tariff on Canada. Why? On the trade of the fentanyl. Now, this is considered as a kind of, let's say, you are taking certain drug in order to reduce the pain. So analgesic, or maybe certain kind of drug which will be suppressing the pain. So this particular drug, and this is a kind of very potent drug in order to suppress that kind of pain, generally the painkiller kind of thing. So morphine, or let's say cocaine, or any other kind of drug that is being used by the people. So that kind of thing, say it is more than 50 or 100% more potent. And that is also a leading cause of certain more number of deaths in United States. It is like 112,000 deaths only in 2024. So that's why the US president has put 35% tariff on this particular fentanyl drug that is coming not only from Canada, but from Mexico also. And it is said by many reports that Canada say only 1% is coming. Majority is coming from Mexico. Still, this kind of tariff is being imposed on Canada. Now, there are certain common street names that are also assigned to it. The news is about the fentanyl. Last in this news in shorts is the Pir Panjal range. So security forces are conducting the intensive search operation in the Pir Panjal range to track the fugitive terrorist. Now, fugitive terrorists, basically those particular terrorists who are not necessarily residing here, they are coming from, let's say, from the Pakistan region or any other region. They are utilizing that region to smuggle the drug and all, right? So it is in the Jammu and Kashmir region. So the Kashmir Valley is situated between the Pir Panjal and the Zaskar range. Zaskar is in the north and the Pir Panjal is in south. So it is, Pir Panjal is in south of the greater Himalayas. So it is part of the lesser Himalayas. Now it is extending from the Jhelum to the upper Beas river. Now talking about the passes, because UPSC can ask about the passes. So Pir Panjal Pass, Bidil Pass, then Golabgar Pass, and then Banihal Pass are the passes situated on this. And when we talk about the river, Kishan Ganga, Jhelum, Chenab, that are cutting through this particular range, right? So this is about the Pir Panjal range. So with this, we have concluded the discussion for the 12th July news today. I hope that you might have understood that what were the main articles, the importance of that, the application of the same, and also along with that, the news in shorts we have discussed. Now what you should do, there are questions on your screen, try to solve them, and also there are questions on the digital current affairs platform, try to solve that also. That will eventually going to help you with respect to your preparation. Okay? Chalo. Thank you everyone. Have a great day.